Hello, everyone. My name is Megan Renfro, and I'm a dual DPT MBA student at Emory University in the graduating class of 2022. I'm really excited to be here and to share with you all a directed study that I completed in the fall, focused on capturing patient experience via text analysis. I'm really excited about this study, and it was really fun for me because it was a way to sort of marry my experiences both at the School of Medicine as well as the Goizueta Business School, which is something that I'm really hoping to continue to do as I kickstart my career in the summer. Now, before I get started, I just want to offer some quick thanks to my professors, mentors, family, and peers who have helped me get to this point in my education. And I especially would like to thank Dr. Beth Davis for being a guiding light and an amazing sounding board and awesome faculty advisor for me on this project. And then lastly, I'd like to give thanks to Professor David Schweidel at the Goizueta Business School. His data-driven market intelligence class really kind of sparked my interest in marketing analytics and more specifically in text analysis, which ultimately helped birth this directed study. So with all of that being said, we can go ahead and jump right in. Patient-centered care dominates the health service industry as a new standard of healthcare delivery. As such, patient satisfaction has really emerged as a key indicator of quality of care that can be utilized as a proxy not only to measure success at the clinician level, but further at the clinic level, informing key decision-making processes such as quality control, resource allocation, and then ultimately impacting other key metrics like patient retention and malpractice claims. Now, when we think about patient satisfaction, we really have to consider the complex, implicit, dynamic, subjective, and multidimensional nature of this measure. Drivers of satisfaction are unique to each individual and are influenced by both internal factors, such as personal experiences, as well as external factors like a pandemic. So if you really think about it, we have this constant stream of patients that are coming into our doors with ever-changing priorities that are going to impact their level of satisfaction with care and overall experience. So how in the world are we supposed to capture such a complex measure? Enter patient-reported outcomes, or PROMs for short. We have tons of them in the world of healthcare, and PT, of course, is no different. We use them all the time to track both treatment outcomes as well as patient satisfaction throughout the entire plan of care. These tools can provide really valuable structured, or in other words, quantitative data that can help inform key decision-making processes related to both treatment as well as clinic-level success. Now, that being said, the closed-ended nature of these measures makes them inherently biased since they only can capture elements of patient satisfaction included in the measure itself. Research by Pellicorn and co-authors found that commonly used PROMs measuring patient satisfaction in those reporting musculoskeletal complaints lacked relevancy, comprehensiveness, and ultimately demonstrated poor content validity, meaning they ultimately failed to adequately represent the entire domain of patient satisfaction. So let's take a 1,000-foot view of the issue. While PROMs offer valuable structured data related to patient satisfaction, many commonly used tools demonstrate poor content validity. In light of this, text analysis is a great resource that allows use of unstructured, qualitative data to supplement unstructured data sources in order to reveal hidden or emerging drivers of patient satisfaction that fills in those gaps where other PROMs may fall short. So here's a roadmap of the presentation. I'll start by taking you through some background information. I'll provide a review of literature related to patient satisfaction, as well as text analysis and its application in healthcare. And then we'll jump into a little bit more of the nitty-gritty of what I actually completed in the project related to text analysis and its application to outpatient PT clinics in the state of Georgia. Currently, the literature suggests that there are 3 primary determinants that drive patient satisfaction within outpatient PT services. Those are interpersonal aspects of care, process of care, and organization of care. Now, interpersonal aspects of care is consistently recognized as the most important determinant related to patient satisfaction. It reflects qualities in clinicians such as professionalism, competence, friendliness, and ability to effectively communicate with their patients. Process of care relates to factors like timeliness, efficiency, and continuity of care. And then third, organization of care really focuses on elements such as clinic accessibility, approachability of support staff, and facility cleanliness. Now, interestingly, studies indicated that the 2 dimensions least associated with patient satisfaction were treatment outcomes and expectations of therapy, which is something we'll talk a little bit more about later in this presentation. But first, what even is text analysis? Well, in short, text analysis is essentially the process of deriving insights from qualitative data. In its raw form, qualitative data is unstructured, meaning that it's not organized in a predefined manner like you'd expect from your typical Likert scale-driven outcome measure, where responses are limited to, say, a scale of 1 to 5. Open-ended questions generate this form of unstructured data, and text analysis aims to quantify these findings in a structured manner in order to be able to pull insights from them. Sentiment analysis and topic modeling are the 2 forms of text analysis that I really focused on throughout this study. Sentiment analysis can look at things like polarity, in this case, positive versus negative reviews, as well as intensity of emotions or subjectivity to content. Topic modeling, on the other hand, focuses on pulling topics from this unstructured data. Let's take an even more granular look at the two. Sentiment analysis can be either rules-based or machine learning-based, meaning an algorithm can calculate sentiment from a set of rules, or an algorithm can be trained to improve sentiment prediction over time. In this study, I utilized the latter, machine learning-based sentiment analysis. Topic modeling, on the other hand, is based off of two standard assumptions. The first being that each document consists of a mixture of topics, and the second, that those topics consist of a mixture of words. There's three primary forms of topic modeling that can be exploited: LGA, LSA, and PLSA. Each are based off of varying statistical approaches. I'll spare all the details here, but for this study, I went with the commonly used LDA, or latent Dirichlet allocation. I'll go a little bit more into detail on each of these later in the presentation as well. In general, text analysis is often used for things like customer segmentation, product development, or campaign monitoring across a variety of industries. When it comes to healthcare, however, its use and application are arguably less prevalent. The literature points to sentiment analysis as a more commonly used text tool when we look at this field. Like other industries, sentiment analysis in healthcare can be broken down based on textual source, task, method, level, and the most commonly ones used I've highlighted for you on this slide. Existing application stems primarily from medical web content and biomedical literature, focused on analysis of polarity such as positive, negative, neutral, via rules-based sentiment analysis at the document level. One study by Sheriff and colleagues focused on adverse drug events. So here, they used sentiment analysis to detect severity of emotional response to side effects of prescribed medication. Another by Biani and colleagues focused on sentiment analysis within online cancer support communities to assess different sentiments related to survivorship. While a useful tool, there are, of course, inherent limitations. Machine-based learning approaches allow for really great model adaptation and growth specific to certain purposes and content. But that means that there's going to be limited applicability to new data or differing contexts. Likewise, rules-based sentiment analysis, which perhaps is the most commonly used at present, is great because it allows for wide term coverage. However, it's limited in the fact that there's a finite number of rules applied. So ultimately, it's going to impair the applicability of rules-based sentiment analysis to more dynamic content. Rules-based approaches also tend to assign a fixed sentiment orientation to words, meaning variance can't always be accounted for. Take the words right and patient, for example. Each have an objective as well as a more descriptive kind of semantic meaning. Right can be used to describe either a direction or to confirm accuracy, while patient can be used to refer to an individual or to express acceptance of delay or inconvenience. Rules-based sentiment analysis can't necessarily pick on these discrepancies. And then lastly, in general, sentiment analysis struggles to capture creative language tools like sarcasm, irony, and humor. It's also limited by the nature of the text source, meaning poorly written or undetailed content is going to generate weaker findings. Ultimately, the nature of vocabulary and writing that's specific to healthcare is extremely unique. As such, when it comes to text analysis application in this field, more context-dependent features related to medicine need to be chosen to account for the unique characteristics in order to generate significant results. So now we're going to start to transition into the actual directed study content, right? So I'll start with taking you through the data that I pulled, the scope of the project, a little bit of the details on sentiment analysis and topic modeling, summaries of my findings, as well as recommendations for future research. So in order to really initiate this project, I first needed to define a scope. I ended up using a tool called Outscraper to pull Google reviews from 273 outpatient PT clinics across the state of Georgia. These clinics resulted in almost 8,000 reviews, of which I had to remove around 1,700 blank reviews that only had a rating with no text content. This gave me a final total of 6,174 reviews to analyze. I started with the sentiment analysis process first. As previously mentioned, I opted for the machine learning-based approach, largely due to the unique nature of reviews related to healthcare that I kind of touched on previously. In Excel, I manually labeled 620 random reviews as either positive or negative in order to train my future model. From here, I used another tool called RapidMiner to pre-process all of the text data. This involves tokenizing, transforming, filtering, and stemming the unstructured data. Now, tokenizing is the process of just separating each individual word into what are called tokens. Tokens are then transformed into all lowercase for uniformity, and punctuation and things like that are removed. Stop words are then filtered out, such as the, that, and, that aren't really going to contribute to data analysis. And then lastly, the token is stemmed to its root. As you can see here, the final result is this more simplified version of text that can then be fed and applied to the machine learning algorithm. Step 3 was to split the data into a train set and a test set. The test set being the unlabeled data only, and the training being the 620 manually labeled reviews that I mentioned before. Still in RapidMiner, I trained the model, setting a binomial target of either positive or negative, and then incorporating both the review text as well as the rating to aid in sentiment prediction. Feature selection and tenfold cross-validation are part of the machine learning process that I've highlighted here in step 4. Feature selection essentially weighs aspects that are more strongly associated with either positive or negative reviews, while tenfold cross-validation acts to improve robustness of a limited data source. So it helps to identify which model is performing best. From here, I selected the highest performing model, which detected true negatives and true positives in the training set with both 94 and 97% accuracy, respectively. Once I was satisfied with the model, I then applied it to the non-labeled data only using a gradient boosted trees algorithm. This is another machine learning approach that leverages multiple decision trees and then aggregates the results in order to reach a consensus on prediction outcome. In this case, positive or negative. Once I had the reviews broken down by sentiment, I began the topic modeling process. I took that same pre-processed text and had RapidMiner perform an LDA analysis on the data. In terms of parameters, I chose 3 topics and 10 words per topic, and then defaulted to 1,000 iterations. The program was then able to generate 3 distinct topics based off of token frequency. At the most granular level, clusters of tokens form topics within the data set, with frequency of each token further determining each topic. Each review then is placed into a topic based off of topic frequency, with the highest determining topic allocation. And then as you can see, there is some overlap between topics, so reviews do vary in terms of strength of association to their respective topics. So now we can go ahead and transition into the findings. On each topic slide, you're going to see a list of those 10 words we were talking about before that we had the LDA analysis provide for us, and they're going to be placed in order from highest associated to least associated with their topics. You're also going to see both a positive as well as a negative review, and likewise, those are going to be those reviews that were the most highly associated with their respective topics. So similarly to the literature review findings, topic 1 was really focused on this idea of interpersonal aspects of care. Words like professional and knowledgeable really dominated this topic, with a large majority being positive in nature. Now, that being said, the few negative reviews were really focused on a lack of friendliness and overall lack of attentiveness in provision of care. Similarly, paralleling with the literature review, customer service emerged as a driver of patient satisfaction or lack thereof in topic number 2. These reviews are strongly focused on factors like insurance, efficiency, and transparency with billing processes. And while a smaller cohort, sentiment here was overwhelmingly negative, with a few positive reviews mentioning helpfulness and clarity related to insurance and costs. And then lastly, we have topic number 3, which interestingly differed from previously discussed findings in the literature review. While treatment outcomes were not significant drivers of patient satisfaction in the literature, physical impact of care kind of emerged as this other really important domain of patient satisfaction within the directed study. Similarly to topic number 1, these reviews were largely positive, with the main focus being on this renewed ability to perform functional activities that they were previously limited to based off of their injury. Likewise, negative reviews were focused largely on physical pain and poor treatment outcomes. Now, through Tableau, I was able to create this simple visualization that does a great job of combining the findings both from the sentiment analysis as well as the topic modeling. But what does it actually tell us? First and foremost, I think it tells us who you hire really matters. This focus on interpersonal care really makes up the overwhelming majority of reviews, and it's really highlighted a lot of the literature. So I think it speaks to the importance of hiring personable, detailed, and effective staff. And then secondly, poor customer service breeds poor satisfaction. The one topic that has an overwhelming number of negative reviews is topic number 2, which is focused on customer service and lack of transparency around billing and insurance processes. So while obviously we can't control insurance, I think making sure that staff is trained and prioritizes clarity in terms of helpfulness related to these measures is going to be key. So that brings us to recommendations. As we continue to develop PROMs targeted at capturing patient satisfaction, it's important for patients to be included in the development process itself. Ultimately, this can help improve the currently poor content validity that we're seeing in outcome measures that are commonly used today. Also, asking more pointed questions for open-ended responses related to patient satisfaction can help mitigate some of the limitations that we're seeing related to nature of text source. Encouraging patients to touch on really specific areas that are either driving or negatively influencing patient satisfaction could be really helpful. And then lastly, clinics should aim to leverage unstructured data as a way to track trends in customer satisfaction. We talked about how it's such a dynamic construct, it's ever changing and it's unique to each individual. So as such, it requires a tool that can capture these changing drivers that typical PRMs that are a little bit more stagnant are likely going to miss. So there are a few limitations and areas that I'd like to focus on in future endeavors. The first being scope. A couple thousand reviews really isn't that many in the grand scheme of things, so I'd want to add a lot more in order to improve generalizability of the findings. Nature of data source as well is another limiting factor when it comes to text analysis that we've discussed. Not everyone writes these beautiful, well thought out, intricate reviews. So ultimately that's going to impede findings as well. In the future, I'd really want to optimize models even further also, especially related to topic modeling. I think adding more data, so improving that scope once again, and then also establishing a better understanding of metrics like topic coherence and log perplexity in order to better evaluate models and improve them would be beneficial in the future. I'd also argue that these insights really should be used for things like market analysis and internal assessment of PT clinics. This unstructured data that we have largely goes unused. It sits on a Google page with the hopes of acquiring new customers, when really it could be used to inform key decisions in a somewhat simple way. So here's a list of my references. And I, again, would just like to thank everybody that took the time to listen to this presentation. My contact information is provided on this slide, so please don't hesitate to reach out if you'd like to chat or have any questions. I would love to connect with each and every one of you. Thank you again, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day.